So, remember when Pokemon used to challenge you? When your rival actually felt like a rival, he would show up in the most inopportune places. He didn't heal your team. You would just come out of a long dungeon, broken and battered, with a sense of panic because there he was, just ready to lay the belt down. Or how about when there was an actual villain we were dealing with that was either hell bent on reshaping the world, stealing Pokemon, or maybe just liberating Pokemon from their trainers? I feel like Pokemon has lost some of that DNA, and I think it's a bigger problem than people realize. So, today I wanted to take some time and talk about what I consider to be the Pokemon problem. And if you guys agree with me, feel free to leave some comments down below, like and subscribe. Helps out the channel a lot. So, with that said, let's just dive into it. I've been playing Pokemon since I was old enough to gain some sort of conscious awareness that I was alive. I got Pokemon Yellow for Christmas. I remember playing it on my Game Boy. I remember getting Pokemon Silver along with the Game Boy Color for my 7th birthday. Heck, I even had the little worm light so I could play on car rides back from the grocery store. Pokemon has always just been a staple of my life, and I've pretty much played everything Pokemon has to offer, whether it's been good or bad. So, in saying that something has changed, I say it as someone who has a deep love for the Pokemon franchise. There's no red at the end of Mount Silver or plot twists like we had with Gestus. And these are moments that really stuck with me because of how challenging some of these moments were. We're never under leveled anymore. There's no long dungeons that have surprise battles at the end that we may be unprepared for because we're always healed. And the villains seem to have become non existent. And when you combine all these things, I feel like just some of the tension disappears. Let's take our rival, for example. Your rival used to challenge you and provide constant pressure. You were never really sure where they were going to pop up at. And in a lot of cases, your rival shows up to battle when you and their party might be in pretty bad shape. And they weren't about to heal you before you battled them either. Blue was always rude or snarky every time you ran into him, and he even became the champion before you. Silver gets his first Pokemon by committing a breaking and entering, and then basically hates your guts throughout the whole game, even shoving you out of the way. And in the end, he actually has a cool character arc where he appears to view Pokemon differently since he actually ends up with a Crobat. But now we have rivals like Hop who heal you before every major battle, who give you the type advantage at the start of the game. And overall, they feel like they lack the friction that the previous rivals used to provide. They just don't really feel like rivals anymore. The same shift has happened with the villains in the game, too. We used to have antagonists who were actual villains with their own motives. Team Rocket was just stealing Pokemon and using them for their own gain, and Giovanni was running a full on criminal empire. Team Aqua and Team Magma were extremists who were willing to flood or dry out the entire planet just to prove that their own ideologies were right. Cyrus was trying to remake the world without strife in his own image by essentially erasing emotion, and he was even willing to lie to Team Galactic to accomplish that goal. And Gestus might actually be my favorite example of this by presenting Pokemon Liberation as a moral argument, all while manipulating N while he was secretly trying to obtain his own goal of just controlling the world. Now it feels like there isn't even really a threat at all in the games. We have villains who are just either misunderstood school kids or just disruptive fans like Team Yell. And in ZA, I thought we actually might be getting a villain again. At least it felt that way, but it just turned out to be someone who was basically a pretend mobster doing shady bank loans for the good of the city the whole time. And there's just no moral tension anymore. And I miss having an antagonistic force that's actually working against us. There's no real threat hanging over the region you're in, no sense that the world could actually change if you lose. The villains from the previous games thought they were right, and in some cases, you weren't just working to stop a villain, you were pushing back against an ideal. And without these things, it just feels like the stakes kind of disappear. And not only that, but at some point, it felt like the game stopped pushing back against you too. Now, Pokemon was never the most difficult game I've ever played. And it's not like I need the game to feel like Dark Souls. But here lately, it feels like the game has just stopped pushing back against the player. The EXP share used to give experience to just one Pokemon, and now it gives it to the whole team. There's really no worry about even being underleveled anymore. It's why I think the Nuzlocks and the Kaizo variants have become so popular lately because it adds some of the challenge back into Pokemon. I know this is still a game meant for kids at the end of the day, but I feel like there has to be some sort of middle ground that we could reach. For example, Fire Emblem, which is one of my other favorite games, has become more accessible without sacrificing difficulty for the players simply by adding an option to turn permadeath on and turn it off. As a longtime Fire Emblem fan, I could never imagine playing without permadeath on, but it's great to have an option for someone else who wants to enjoy the game in an easier way that also respects the players who like to have that additional bit of challenge. Simply doing something like giving the players the ability to turn the experience share off would go a long way, I feel like. And as it stands, you're just completely protected from falling behind. You're never punished since you're healed before every major battle. And these things, they sound convenient, but in taking away some of the friction, it makes the progression feel less satisfying to me. And that's kind of what I feel like ties this all together. The rivals, they don't feel like they push you. The villains just don't exist anymore. And some of the mechanics have just been smoothed out a bit too much. It's just like Pokemon doesn't trust the player to overcome adversity anymore. And let me reiterate, I don't think Pokemon is bad. I still love Pokemon. I'm sure the developers still care about the series just as much as we do, but somewhere along the way, it feels like comfort became more important than conflict. Rivals feel like friends, villains feel like misunderstandings, and it rarely feels like we have a chance to fail. But struggle and friction are what can create meaningful experiences. They're what make the victories more satisfying. They're what make the stories stick with us. I want my rival to feel like a rival again. I want the villain to feel like a threat because those moments, the ones that you had to push through, are the ones that really resonated with me. And team building and catching Pokemon has never been more fun than it is now. But there's something special about earning your place as a champion. It is why, after seeing Ash win the championship after 25 years, it meant so much. And that's just what Pokemon needs to do. It just needs to trust us to be able to overcome something because that's when the journey really means the most. And if you stuck around this far, thanks so much for sticking with me. Thanks so much for hearing me out. And if you have any thoughts or comments you'd like me to hear, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And I hope to see you guys next time.